So, to my surprise, I'm starting out today with another box. Now, obviously, this one's not as big as Triptychon's was. I just looked at him in full in episode 300 and everything to do with that guy and all of the comparisons. No. This one is a little bit different. In fact, it's not actually a full bot. This is my first order from Shapeways. The design, I guess, came from Noted, or Knotted. I'm not sure how he says his name, and if I butchered it, I am very, very sorry. K-N-O-T-E-D. It is the upgrade set of arms for the Transformers Titans Return Kup. And we're going to take a look at it and everything to do to customize it to fit in with your figure, or in my case, my version of him, in the latest GotBot True review. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Check out Machinery of Man, the Everything Factor. Spend some time on the channel, have a look at Universal Collision, and look for me everywhere. Now, over time, if you've been following me, you have seen that I've done a lot of custom work on the Titans Return release of Kup, and here he is again. Now, that being said, if you want a closer look at this, I kind of get my latest, what I'm calling Kup date in episode 271. I also did a how to customize, I guess, kind of tutorial for beginners in episode 274, and that covers a lot of information, but it's great for beginners who don't want to make a huge investment. This will kind of be an add-on to that because we're going to be doing the custom work so we can see the finished product by the end of all of this. So where do we start? Well, we take Kup out of it, and we have this box, and of course there's a bunch of bubble wrap in there. There's a packing slip, of course, that was in there. There's a thank you card that was in there, and basically it says that this isn't your average package. It comes from independent designers from around the world, like I said. Knotted. Each one is made individually in 3D printing factories, and hopefully, hopefully you're happy with it. So it's nice that they, put that in there. It's just customer appreciation. It's an art that's kind of lost these days. Inside of the box, we have this little bag. Doesn't look like much right now. Inside the bag, we have a sprue. Now, you can get different colors. Sometimes you can get different plastics. This is a white polished nylon plastic. And it is the shoulder piece, the upper bicep, the forearm, and the fist, as well as the elbow connectors. They come white, which means you do have to do some customizing with it. So you've got to be okay with that. I'm going to just bring this in a little bit closer so that we can see what comes on the sprue, a little bit better. But this is what you basically get. And right now it's hard to see any kind of detail. And we're back. I have all of the pieces off of the sprue. Obviously, if you want to avoid sanding, you want to try and get in as close as you possibly can when you're cutting these off. Step 2 is you rinse them in a little bowl of water. I ran a couple of runs from the tap through. I ended up wiping them off after, of course, drained the water off, and take a soft bristled toothbrush and scrub them down. Now you might say, why are you doing that? You do this to ensure basically that any nylon dust from manufacturing is removed. You want to try and have all of that removed and off. So I'm going to take each of these pieces now, and you see I'm just giving it a pretty simple brushing with a, you know, like I said, with a soft bristle toothbrush. I don't know if you're going to be able to get it perfect, but you want to try and get it as prepared as you can for when you put these pieces together. Like I said, it's a little bit of work, but the end result, if it works out, should be pretty stellar. And if you've ever thought about going this route, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what you're sort of in for. In terms of the pieces you get, well, like I said, you get a shoulder, you get an upper bicep, you get the elbow connector, the forearm, and the fist, which should as well, assuming everything fits nicely, it should also serve to give you a nice range of motion, actually a little bit more than what the official version gives you, because you're going to gain, or you should gain, wrist swivels. I'm a big fan of getting wrist swivels. I like wrist swivels. And just drop that one. I would suggest to you especially want to do things like around the mushroom pegs, around the actual balls of the ball joints. Yes, you're going to want to do the rest, but you want to make sure that you kind of have these pieces as absolutely clean as you can. And I thought about just doing one or two of these and then kind of cutting, but I decided that I wouldn't, because I wanted you to see just really how quick and easy this is to do, even with all of these pieces. By the way, even after you cut it off of the sprue, you should be left with a fair size section, and my suggestion would be to hold on to that fair size section at the moment, because we're going to be able to kind of use that in the next step to help us out just a little bit. Now, just to make sure, I have 2 shoulder pieces, I have 2 upper bicep pieces, 2 forearm pieces, and 2 elbow pieces. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there and we will move on and do section 3 next. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the next part, and you see that this is definitely a different setup than what we usually do. This is the, I guess, how-to section, where I'm going to attempt to do something, and let's hope that it works so that I can show you guys accurately how to do this. It's dyeing plastic. Now, this is white nylon plastic. My guess would be that if you have a different color, your results might vary, so it's probably wise to kind of test the dye bath based on an inconspicuous part to see how the new color would take hold. Obviously with white, it's a little easier to work with. So what do we have already set up here? Well, let me show you just kind of what we already have here. We have, it's suggested you use tongs. I'm going to be using a little metallic strainer. It just needs to be deep enough to go in here. I do have my bowl lined with foil. My understanding is that dye won't actually stain glass anyway, as soon as you're done with it, you get rid of it and you clean the bowl immediately. But I want to kind of try and be safe, so I hope I'm doing the right thing. All of my pieces right now are back here. Everything is there except for his fists, because I'm going to be dealing with them differently. However, I do have a little piece of the sprue left here, because I'm going to test that first once I have the dye bath done. So how are we going to do a dye bath? There's going to be boiled water. Boil it in a pot, boil it in a kettle. If you have a glass measuring cup, that would really help you, because you could measure out exactly the dye and the water. I've never done this, so I'm having to test it just a little bit. I don't have a glass measuring cup either, so this is going to get interesting. I'm going to basically follow what has been outlined to me to do. In terms of the dye to use, I mean, there's lots of options out there. You can use a fabric dye basically, because this is technically nylon. So in order to kind of get the color I want, and what I'm going for is, here's his actual arm that comes, well, here's his actual arm that comes in package. I'm going to try and get a color to match the light color here as much as possible, and then I can apply the other paint details after the fact. But at least coloring the arms would give me that base to work with. The only thing with dyeing is that whatever section you're going to do, the whole color, or the whole section is going to be that one solid color really. So for me, you know, I'm going to be using a mix of RIT liquid dye teal and RIT dye more synthetic Kentucky Sky. That's going to be my mix. We'll see how well it works out when the time comes, so I have to get a couple of things ready in order to put the bath together. Now, it's also suggested that you throw in vinegar. I will be doing that along with the water. That helps to neutralize the pH so that the little bit that we're using here can actually go down your drain just fine. If you use a lot of dye, obviously, it's harder for it to be disposed of. But basically, for what we're using here, it should be able to go down your drain just fine. Make sure that you flush it out with a lot of hot water afterwards. So, we're going to get the bath together. We're going to test that piece first, see how it works out, and then we're going to do the other pieces. And let's cross our fingers that this works out well. Okay, so first thing we have to do is put a bit of vinegar in there. If you're somebody who really wants to measure it out very specifically, then it's suggested that it be about 250 milliliters. That, of course, is for a big dye bath. You could probably get away with about 125 here, maybe even less. Next, we will grab our boiled water. I used the old-timey kettle just for fun, just for funsies. And you want to make sure that you have enough of that in there to be able to submerge this completely into the dye bath. About that. And we'll take the strainer back out of it. By the way, if you're actually planning to do this, you want to make sure that your area is covered in case you spill some dye, because this stuff will stain anything. And if you're planning on actually using tongs or something and putting your hand down in the dye bath itself, remember that's boiling hot water. You're not, you know, you're going to want rubber gloves. You're going to want thick rubber gloves, something that can withstand the heat. So we open this up. This is the teal, and we pour some of the teal in. And we shake up the other one, and we pour some of that in as well. By rights, they should each be about 125 milliliters. Stirred around. I'm just using like a paint stir stick, and you can see like even that's already getting stained, right? We lay that there. We take our piece of plastic, our piece of whatever this plastic is, sprue, and we're going to put it in the mix and see what happens. And you can see I'm already getting a color change to it. I'm just curious. It is something that I left in for a very short amount of time. It is certainly a little bit darker than I thought it was going to be, which means I probably used a bit too much dye here. But okay, so here is what we end up with. It's pretty close. I think I probably used too much of the blue personally, but it's certainly better than having it all white. So now that we have that done, we take our strainer and we put the pieces in. You want to try and submerge them all at once so that you get the same kind of uniform dye color for all of them. Obviously, if you're only doing one thing, using tongs is another option. And we take it and we place it in. So that they can be submerged. And we take these out. And we take these out. And once you have them all out, run the whole thing under hot water to rinse these off. Check it out. You'll see that they're quite light again now, so I'm going to dip them in here again momentarily. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I've had them in there for about 15 seconds, and now I'll rinse the whole thing off again. Still quite light, so I'm going to do this a couple more times. I'm going to get it to the final color that I want it. Okay, and in the end, this is basically what I came out with. It's a respectably close shade to that light color. You, of course, can try mixing, you know, different shades and colors and doing the dyes, and when you first take it out, it's going to look really dark. If you don't want that dark, give it a quick rinse under water, warm water. If you want to remove some of the dye, hot water if you want to remove a lot of it, cold if you want to remove just a little bit of it. But this is what I ended up with, and this is what I'm going to work from going forward. And I'm pretty happy with it. I need to let that dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to clean up everything else. A lot of it, by the way, is garbage now. But you get an idea of how this works. This was my very first time doing it. And if I can get this kind of result, I'm sure that you can do just as well, if not better than me. So as you can see, dyeing plastic is challenging. It certainly takes practice. I didn't do a perfect job, but that's okay because I'm not done with the work I need to do on that yet. Maybe your results will be better. So what are we going to do with Armless Kup here while we wait for that to dry? Well, first I cleaned everything up. You have to be very careful, very meticulous cleaning it up because, like I said, dye will stain anything. You do not want to get it on something it shouldn't be on. In fact, I have it on my hand here. On my thumb, for example, and on my fingers here. I don't know how long that's going to stick around for. But while we wait for that to finish drying, I'm going to deal with the hands, the little hand pieces. And I'm going to use a mix of a gloss gray and a glossy white to kind of give me, I guess, kind of a grayish styling on these instead of just leaving them stark white. So I'm going to do that by mixing a dab of each right here, and once that's mixed, then I'll just mix it with my brush. Once that's mixed, I will paint these over and let these dry as well, and hopefully by then we can get to work on the arms. Okay, so I took a minute, I did my mix, I ended up with fists that look like this, and I'm going to try and show it there now. That look like this. Little bit gray, you can see in by my fingers where the original white was. So these are now a glossy gray, and all I did to do the mix was, like I told you, I took basically a squirt of gloss white, gloss gray, mixed them together down right there to get the shade that I wanted. I used more white than I did gray. You do not need very much gray at all. So we have that done. Next is going to be moving on to the arm pieces themselves. Okay, so what have I done now? Well, I already showed you the fists. I of course dyed the arms, and then I took each arm piece and I also painted it over. I took a gloss teal. Actually, the teal is called Ocean Breeze is the name on it. I mixed it with some white to give a lighter color so that I could take each of these and also paint it. Now you might say, hey GotBot, if you were going to paint these, why did you dye them? Because I wanted the color to be in around where the ball joints and the mushroom pegs will be, the connections. And though you could paint that, over time and moving his arms, it's possible that could wear off. At least this way it's not white when you look at those things. It is going to be a color that is pretty much a match. In terms of how close of a match this is, well, the upper arm of Kup is the color I was looking to match, and that's the color I got. So I think that it's a respectably close color. Right now, the entire arm, is done this way. And I'll add in the more specific apps after we put it together. So now in terms of putting this together. Moment of truth here, folks. So we take the shoulder piece and we take the bicep piece, and they should be able to slide into each other. Then, assuming I do it the right way, then I should be able to take the elbow piece and slide that in and put the forearm piece on as well. I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you the completed arm with the fist in it. Oh, and welcome back again. Okay, so I got the pieces together. Really, you just slot them up into each other, and this is the arm that you end up with, at least basically. It still has to go on over the ball joint for the shoulder, but this is basically what you end up with as compared to, now granted I still have to do some paint applications here, but this was the old arm. This is the new arm. He has a rounded shoulder, the whole arm is rounded, the bicep is rounded, the lower forearm is rounded. He still has a 5mm peg in his fist. So I'm going to do the other details, which is basically taking a toothpick to do the yellow and using a mix of a darker teal and a little bit of white to do the other details, and then we'll compare both of them, pop them onto Kup, and kind of do the review of this set. But right now, just to, I guess, touch on it, you do still have a bicep swivel. It looks like you're going to have a nice shoulder out. You do still have the double elbow, and now you have a wrist swivel as well. So that alone is an impressive improvement. And as I keep plugging through, I have the left arm now completely finished. The right arm is the stock arm that comes with them. So it's really your choice. Rounded shoulder, squared shoulder. Actually, squared arm or rounded arm. I'm going to do the other one, put it on, and then we'll have a look at everything in full. But there's the comparison of both arms on Kup, finished. And here we are with the final product, the final result of everything that we've gone through. I wanted to show all that so that you weren't misguided, misled to think that what you get is a finished product. It's not. You still have some work to do with it. So if you're not cool with doing some custom work, you basically have two options. Either don't spend your money on a set like this, or choose one of the other colors possibly that you might be able to use and be okay with blue arms or green arms or yellow arms. But it's really your call. For me, I wanted to be able to have something that really helped make the silhouette complete. Obviously, as you can see here, he holds his his guns no problem. He's fine with those. The finish, if you're not used to nylon plastic, the material is a little rougher, I guess is the only way I could think of to say it. It's honestly, the arms that come on Kup stock, I feel like might be made of a nylon plastic, possibly, because they're not quite as smooth as most that we're used to. That's why I washed this off and whatnot. But once it's all done, I mean, you can see what the final result looks like, and I think that that's probably more accurate. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Hey, GotBot, why wouldn't you just get the Transformers Legends version that's going to be coming up? That's also an option. But in doing the math, buying this figure, customizing him, and getting this add-on set it still worked out to be cheaper than if I was to import that other figure. And of course, there are comparisons that could be made here. So let's make them. First of all, the shoulders aren't quite as bulbous up around as the Legends version are. Even though those shoulders are rounded, these aren't quite up as high. The forearms and the biceps are also rounded. So the entire arm is rounded rather than part of it being rounded. What else can I say about this? Well, we have articulation that allows this to go around 360 degrees still. It can go out to the side, no problem. We still have the double elbow, so he can still bend up there. We still have a bicep swivel, though mine's extremely tight. I think that's because of how I cut it off the sprue, though, to be honest with you. We still have the hand able to move out that way if you really wanted to. Of course, juice for transformation. And now we do have something that that other version doesn't have, and that is a wrist swivel. Mine is a little bit loose in places, but nothing that some floor polish couldn't fix. Of course, that being said, there's another option even if you do experience some looseness. The seller, Knotted, actually contacted me and said that if I had any loose parts, joints, that they'd be replaced. I mean, that's fantastic customer service right there. So very, very happy about that. I don't know if I have anything that really needs to be, but I'll fiddle with this guy a little bit more and see. Can he still transform? Yeah, of course he can. So I'm going to get him in his alt mode and we'll take a look at how these arms fare then. Yeah, and see how they fit in with the whole grand scheme of his vehicle mode. And here we have him in his alt mode. And you can see that it still, sticks in there quite nicely. Now, I had mentioned how the shoulders weren't bulbous like the Legends version. They're rounded nicer, but behind them there's still this flat panel so that when you do the transformation, you still get that same silhouette without breakage down here. So I kind of like how both of that was meshed together, because this still looks pretty clean. Really from all angles. I mean, there it is from behind. There it is from the top. You know, it's still pretty a pretty fair representation of that vehicle mode. So I totally dig that. Now, some people that saw my cup review realized that I did an alternate transformation for this guy, where I said you can leave his head on. If you don't want to have to remove flintlock, you can leave it on. And it works quite well with the stock arm, because the stock arm is all blocky. So even though you rearrange the positioning, it still looks pretty cohesive because of that blockiness. Now we have roundedness here. So does that, you know, fan mode transformation still work with this set? Well, it does. Is it as effective? Probably not. I'll take a second, I'll put him in that mode, and you can judge for yourself. And here we are back again with the fan mode. You can see that we still have flintlock in there. The arms, instead of being in by the body, are now kind of out behind and just folded up that way. It still works, like you can still do this fan mode, but obviously with the rounded arms, it's not quite as cohesive as it probably was. But does it work? Yeah, it still works. It's just, you know, you have to kind of allow for the differences in the molding. Still, that being said, is this set worth picking up? I wanted the most accurate cup possible, and I feel like that this fills the bill for it. In terms of paint apps, it's got to get a 0, because you have to customize it to get it the way you want it. I suppose you could just put white arms on them, but you have to do a bit of work, use some elbow grease with it, obviously, as you've seen. Articulation, assuming that all of your joints are tight and you don't need anything replaced, or if you need it replaced, assuming that that part works just great, I would give the articulation and the materials used about an 8. It's pretty good, but of course 3D printing is what it is. It's about an 8. I'm happy with it. Transformation. Well, you know what? It can do everything that the stock arms can do and more. So I'm going to give that a 10. Overall, this set is a solid 8 for an add-on. It really is. It's a good set. It's a nice design. I think it's nicer than either of the stock set of arms that we have on either the Titans Return or the Legends line. Can I recommend it? Yeah, I think so. I think so, but you have to know what you're getting yourself into with it. Anyway, that's it. I think finally I have my ideal cup. I thank you for dropping by. Let me know what you think about this set. And as always, I look forward to the next time that you and I get together for another visit right here inside the videos.